Just think about that. In one day, the whole world knew the name of Bangladesh. That's a powerful quote from Ravi Shankar. And he was right. With just a single concert, a name that, let's be honest, very few people in the West had ever even heard, was suddenly on everyone's lips. This was the moment everything changed. The moment music became this global force for humanitarian aid in a way no one had ever seen before. So let's get into the story of what happened in New York City way back in 1971.
Yeah, this is a story about rock and roll royalty, for sure. Unprecedented star power. But at its heart, at its very core, it's about a simple, almost desperate plea between two friends that would ignite a fire and, well, change the relationship between music and activism forever. This is the story of the Concert for Bangladesh.
To really understand why this concert was so absolutely necessary, we have to go back. We have to look at the brutal reality of what was happening in 1970s East Pakistan, the nation that today we know as Bangladesh. What was unfolding there it wasn't just one crisis. It was this catastrophic 1-2 punch, a perfect storm, really, of a horrifying natural disaster and just unspeakable man-made violence, pushing an entire nation and its people to the absolute brink of collapse. Okay, so first, in November of 1970, the Bola cyclone hits. And this wasn't just any storm. We're talking about one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. It killed up to 500,000 people. Can you even imagine? And then, just as the region was reeling from that, a political crisis just explodes. In March 71, the Pakistan Army launches this brutal military crackdown as part of the Bangladesh Liberation War, leading to widespread atrocities and genocide. And the result of all that? 10 million people. 10 million terrified, starving refugees pouring over the border into neighboring India. It created an almost unimaginable humanitarian crisis. Famine, disease like cholera, it was all exploding. And you know what? The world, for the most part, just wasn't paying attention. But one man, he couldn't look away.
And this right here is where our story pivots. It goes from this massive geopolitical disaster to something deeply, deeply personal. This is where a single phone call changed everything.
Ravi Shankar was a global music icon. I mean, this is the man who brought the sitar to the West. But he was also of Bengali heritage. His ancestral homeland was being torn apart. His people were suffering immensely. And he was just appalled and heartbroken. And he knew he had to do something. So he turned to the only person he knew with the kind of power to command the world's attention, his friend, George Harrison. You can feel the emotion of that conversation right there. In the lyrics George Harrison wrote for his charity single, Bangladesh. The power of that song wasn't in statistics or political speeches, no. It was in the simple, human story of a friend asking for help. Now, Shankar's initial idea was actually pretty modest. He was hoping to raise maybe, $25,000 with a small benefit show. But George Harrison, who was fresh off the massive success of the Beatles and his own monumental solo album, well, he thought bigger, a lot bigger. He envisioned an all-star rock concert at America's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden.
What Harrison proposed was, well, it was completely unprecedented. Nobody had ever even attempted a rock benefit on this kind of scale. There was no blueprint, there was no how-to guide. He was literally making it up as he went along.
And get this, he had to do it at lightning speed. From that initial idea in late June to the actual concert on August 1st, that was a period of just 5 or 6 weeks. It was an absolutely impossible sprint to organize a show of this magnitude. So he just started hitting the phones. He started calling some of the biggest names in music. His old bandmate Ringo Starr, the famously reclusive Bob Dylan, guitar god Eric Clapton, and superstars like Billy Preston and Leon Russell. This whole thing wasn't put together by promoters and agents. It was one musician personally asking his friends for a massive favor.
But that was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? Would they all actually show up? I mean, Eric Clapton was deep in the throes of a severe heroin addiction that made his participation incredibly doubtful. And Bob Dylan? Well, he was famously shy of the stage and hated big events. He was having serious doubts and wouldn't commit until the very last second. The whole thing could have just collapsed.
But it didn't. It didn't collapse. Which brings us to August 1st, 1971, at Madison Square Garden, the day the music world truly came together.
The demand was so huge they actually had to add a second show on the same day. 40,000 people packed the arena, but the real audience was so much larger. Because of the concert album and the film that would follow, pretty soon the whole world was watching.
The structure of the show itself was revolutionary. It didn't open with rock and roll. It opened with this beautiful, quiet set of Indian classical music from Ravi Shankar and Ali Akbar Khan. Then, Harrison's massive rock orchestra took the stage, with Ringo, Billy Preston, and a blistering guitar duel with Eric Clapton. And then came the moment nobody actually thought would happen. Bob Dylan, who hadn't toured in years, just walked on stage and absolutely stunned the crowd.
Album co-producer Phil Spector, I think, summed it up perfectly. He just said, it was magical. And it was. It was an amount of star power that had simply never been assembled on one stage for one cause before that day.
But the concert's real impact, its true legacy, goes so far beyond just one magical day of music. It created this ripple effect that, honestly, we still feel today.
So we have to ask the big question, right? Was it a success? And the answer is, well, it's surprisingly complicated. On the one hand, yes, absolutely. It raised immediate funds and, maybe more importantly, it put the crisis in Bangladesh on the global stage overnight. It created the blueprint for every single major benefit concert that followed, from Live Aid to Farm Aid. But, on the other hand, the project was plagued with problems, managerial controversies, and, this is the big one, a failure to register as a charity beforehand meant the IRS tied up millions of dollars in tax accounts for over a decade.
But for George Harrison, the ultimate goal was never just about the money. He believed the real victory was awareness. The concert proved that musicians and just ordinary people could be more humane and, frankly, a lot more effective than politicians.
And that right there, that is its true, undeniable legacy. The Concert for Bangladesh was the blueprint. It proved that musicians could leverage their fame for something more, that they could be good world citizens and inspire millions of people to do the exact same thing.
Think about it. Before 1971, the idea of a rock star as a global humanitarian was almost unthinkable. After the Concert for Bangladesh, it wasn't just possible, it was almost expected. This was a fundamental paradigm shift, and it was born from one friend's plea for help.
And that leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The concert proved the incredible power of music to focus the entire world's attention on a single, urgent crisis. So, if George Harrison were to get his friends together today, what forgotten crisis, what unheard plea for help do you think they'd be singing for?